The vast majority of people here in Belgium obviously condemn this attack. They're horrified. There have been threats of terrorist attacks in Belgium before, but this is the biggest ever terrorist attack to take place on Belgian soil. This is just not something that happens. Terrorists have come from Belgium and gone to other places, like in the Paris attacks, but they just haven't seen this kind of devastation. So most people are just mortified by it. But I will say, as I was standing here about an hour ago, one individual came up to me, a young man, and he was a sympathizer. He said, actually, there's going to be more of this if Belgium continues to participate in the coalition in Syria. Yeah, pretty alarming, considering that I'm standing just down the road from where 20 people were killed in a terrorist attack earlier in the day. And I think that shows, in a very frightening way, that there's a lot of hate simmering beneath the surface here in Brussels. As for the personal sanctions introduced against some Russian politicians, he said that's something that didn't even happen in the darkest hours of the Cuban Missile Crisis. Have a listen. Russian Prime Minister Dmitry Medvedev.
The only ones who want sanctions are politicians, who use them to reinforce their convictions and to demonstrate their power. For example, our American colleagues and President Obama need to show the Congress that America doesn't fear Russians.
If your biggest accomplishment has been, I guess, saving the euro, what would you describe, and this is not to be hard on you, but maybe a little bit of self-criticism here or self-analysis. What has been your biggest failure during your tenure as the president of the European Commission?
Look, let my critics make they are so generous indicating failure.
Minister, Bloomberg Television, can you give us your view of the decision and a little bit of a sense of, a little bit of a sense of the deliberations in the room?
The deliberations, as you know, were quite critical, and they were very serious, because every economy in there has responsibilities to its people and to its government. However, it was felt that maintaining the levels would in fact help to stabilize the prices at this time, or at least sharply reduce the decline. And we'll watch and see what happens.
And what about Venezuela's argument that that a cut is necessary?
It's not only Venezuela, I believe, that feels that a cut is necessary.
Yeah.
I mean, a number of economies do.
What does Alexis Tsipras have to do over the next 72 hours?
What he's got to do is effectively introduce more austerity than even a couple of weeks ago. And what he has to do, unlike the first government when they got the first bailout, is he's got to front-load it. He's got to get the austerity through the parliament in 72 hours, as you were saying, before he gets the money, whereas they got the money and then they had months to come through with the austerity program. But it's the credibility problem that the German chancellor was talking about that they want to overcome. So they're saying, we don't trust you. You get the austerity through, and then we'll deal with you and maybe give you some money. Now, in case you hadn't noticed, the Tour de France, cycling's most famous race, kicked off this weekend, but maybe not where you'd expect. It was here in the United Kingdom, of all places. I caught up with one of the top teams during its preparation for the Tour and their owner, trying to shake up the sport. Oleg Tenkov was the champion of Siberia before he made hundreds of millions selling Russians dumplings, beer, and credit cards. He's now pumping his money and energy into his very own team.
There is a passion and business.
And wants to talk to me about it while he does a little riding of his own.
So to what extent is this about making money, and to what extent is this, you're a rich guy, you can afford to have a team, you know, it's a little bit of a toy?
Now that you've had this meeting with President Poroshenko, you've met President Obama, how likely is a ceasefire in Ukraine? What can you and will you do to achieve a ceasefire there? And how quickly do you think a ceasefire can be achieved?
I think this needs to be done immediately. They need to immediately stop the punitive operations in the southeast.
I'd like to ask you, as the president of Ukraine, what do you say to the parents of the dead soldiers who come back from the front?
Look, I have lots of meetings with them, and look, they're a hero who given their lives for our freedom, for our democracy, and for our independence.
What began in Crimea is now playing out in eastern Ukraine.
This is utter destruction. I mean, I've been in demolition sites, war zones. I've never seen anything quite like this.
But the outcome here is far less certain.
We're going to stay low because we just had a burst of gunfire.
War has returned to Europe.
Right on the outskirts of Donetsk, and as you can hear, there's a pretty significant battle underway.
it's West versus East, and it's Slav versus Slav. We've come to the front lines.
Journalisti! Journalisti!
And gone into the mines.
This is not a good place to go if you're claustrophobic!
Look at what it means for ordinary people and what it might mean for you. We came to this bridge to film some of the destruction caused by the war in eastern Ukraine. What we didn't realize was we're not entirely outside of the battle zone.
Journalisti! Стоим, journalisti.
Turns out, I'm standing on a tank parked just under the bridge. A separatist fighter, off camera, trains his gun on me and tells me not to move.
Picture?
He wants to check our documents.
Пожалуйста, пожалуйста. Не, у меня просто чисто такой...
We're at the Udarnik coal mine, one of the town's last engines of economic activity. And we're heading 600 meters beneath the surface.
He's been doing this for 20 years, going down in this elevator.
In many Russians, there's a stubborn pride. Pride in doing things their own way. And in our last conversation on the ranch, answering my final question, Daryl for the first time utters the F word for failure.
You think this is a chance in a lifetime kind of thing?
You took the words right out of my dad's mouth. He came over here with a trip with me, and on the return home, he said in my lifetime, my dad's lifetime, my granddad's lifetime, I don't think that any one of us saw this kind of an opportunity. And made the comment that he'd rather see me fail trying than not to attempt at all.
The American cowboy is one of the world's great and enduring icons. Part of the lore is that they're dreamers, independent free spirits, restless men in search of new frontiers. Russia may be a new frontier for America's cowboys, or it may just be a dream.
Should I climb in?
Woo! It's amazing what you can fit into that small capsule.
До встречи на Марсе. Hey!
With 3 cosmonauts.
Let me out! I think I've had enough of this.
Alexander is going to give us a little tutorial on the survival kit. That's the water. Waterproof matches. Not that you're allowed to smoke or anything. And this is the food ration right here. All right, let's see what we got inside here. Freeze-dried yogurt. Interesting. Could use a little something to drink with it. It's actually pretty good, though. Whoa!